Hello, good morning, Mr. Patil. Good morning, good morning. How are you doing? Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum. ख्वाहिश का क्या है पता, जाती ये दिल से कहाँ, उसके आगे और पीछे पागल ये सारा जहां, कोई मांगे अपनी ज़मीं, कोई मांगे ये आसमां, हम चाहे वो हो करीब, वो ढूंढे अपना मकाम. Done. I am live on LinkedIn. I am live on YouTube. I've also invited my folks on WhatsApp. So yeah, I'm pretty much sorted. I'm ready to hit the road. So if you can hear me, you can say something. Let me know if you can hear me. And we will begin the show that you deserve. Mr. Patil, if you could hear me, please let me know. That'll be very helpful. At least I'll get a confirmation on YouTube, which will be nice. And oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Patil. I hope your days are going really well. And it's audible. Perfecto. Just we'll wait for a second on LinkedIn, just so we can be sorted, right? So LinkedIn always has some sort of latency, and that latency will get sorted, and then we will begin. Oh, I got a thumbs up. I got a thumbs up on LinkedIn. Does that mean I'm audible? Am I audible? Mr. Jindal, Mr. Ankit Jindal, my dear Ankit Jindal, very good friend, best friend from my days at the Testament. Good morning, Mr. Nishant Mittal. I hope you can hear me, Mr. Jindal. You are audible. So we will begin. Thank you so much for this. We are going ahead. So, bum 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 bum. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call into divine intervention, folks, because things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. Our daily mental workout which forces us to think, analyze, and predict. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we've got to follow a tradition. You know the you know the tradition, right? You know the tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all have to sip something together because it's lucky. It's very lucky for us. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having water with some black pepper and elaichi in it. What do we call elaichi in English? Is it cinnamon? I don't know. Elaichi and black pepper. Black pepper is kali mirch, so elaichi and kali mirch in hot water. It's supposed to be good for me. And here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. Beautiful. Beautiful. Sublime. Highlight of the day, dopamine hit of dopamine hits. Let's do it again. I love it. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what the simultaneous sip says, don't you? It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's go. Center mulls options to give Vodafone Idea relief on 84,000 crore dues. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know, we've discussed this in depth, that Center is the 49% shareholder of Vodafone Idea, and Center is stuck with Vodafone Idea, all because it doesn't want India to be a two telecom country, and because it has overpaid for its stock of Vodafone India. When it converted its debt into equity, essentially Center got a share at Vodafone for 11 rupees when it could have been bought for like 6 or 7, 10 to 11. So it massively overpaid. But the point is that the government is now down with Vodafone. It'll have to save Vodafone come what may, because now it's the sunk cost fallacy game, right? Since it's already invested so much into Vodafone, and since so much of money has already been poured into Vodafone, now it cannot be allowed to fail, because all that effort will be considered a sunk cost. So now it'll just have to keep helping the telecom operator till it can find its way, if it can. Otherwise, it's just going to be another PSU without the PSU tag, because 49% shareholding is as close as it gets, right? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would also know that Vodafone Idea was having trouble paying its debt. Some 84,000 crore were the AGR dues, and those those dues, they wouldn't have been able to pay because they have a 6-year repayment scheme as per the government rules are considered. Now, what the government was thinking was to extend that timeline to 20 years or maybe even 100 years, just so those payments could be staggered and the telecom operator could survive. So that's exactly what's happening. We were ahead of the curve. Now the government is looking at increasing the timeline to 20 years, and it's just looking at taking some sort of token money instead of the entire interest payment, a simple interest payment instead of compound interest or interest of interest. So what happens is, generally, these telecom operators, if they're not being able to pay their debt or the dues, it follows a interest on interest principle, right? But now the government is saying, let's just give them a simple interest and be over with it. They need the telecom operator to survive anyhow, somehow, and for that we will have to pay. And you know who I blamed for this? Do you know who I blamed for this debacle of the Vodafone Idea debacle? Do you remember? We had a very nice discussion on it. Yeah? And I said something of extreme value. And I said the person who's actually responsible for this Vodafone Idea debacle is Abhishek Bachchan. Well, that was a good joke. Abhishek. Mr. So Mr. Patil remembers, he says Abhishek Bachchan. Yes, sir, you're right. And we all can blame Abhishek Bachchan for this. But the point is now, the government is looking at uh, principal amount. Dues include interest penalty. Government converted 36,000, 40,000 spectrum dues into equity. Now it's at 49.99%. And what the government is looking at right now is just charge a token amount of around 1000 to 1500 crore annually towards part payment of dues until a final decision is taken. So it's just so bad that just to delay the decision, they are willing to let go of it, right? And also, the interest on interest things, right? Yeah. Among the option on the table to address adjusted gross revenue is increasing repayment tenure to 20 years from 6 right now, and simultaneously applying a simple interest on the outstanding amount instead of compound interest. So no complications there. Exactly what I told you. Speaking of things that I told you about robo taxi yesterday. If you remember, Tesla robo taxi, and what it'll lead to as far as the Uber play is considered. So as soon as Tesla announced the robo taxi and the US markets opened, Tesla grew 7%. The stock of Tesla was up 7%, and the stock of Uber is still down, but intraday movement is up 1.8%. So Tesla grew 7% right after that robo taxi move, because it had a lot of entertainment value also. It said that the token amount for those cabs is basically $4.20. The 420 weed joke, it is still applying. So that's that. And speaking of things that we discussed yesterday very, very deeply, we were talking about how the markets would react to Iran's escalation. If you remember, we discussed, and Mr. Kumar was there, and Mr. Kumar and I were talking about how the stock market could react to this particular incident, the Iran escalation, right? So Iran had this Iran had this attack, and the anticipation of that escalation was supposed to be a market mover. And I was not sure of what's gonna happen. I was like really in two minds. I didn't know where it's gonna go, and so on and so forth. And apparently, the market was also in two minds. So it debuted lower at it was 0.9% down, and then it reclaimed its position to around 0.5% down. So it barely moved. The anticipation of attack or retaliation brought it a little down, but at the same time, perhaps the sentiment that Iran cannot attack much, Iran has no less teeth, so to speak, kept the market pretty stable. Defense stocks were up, by the way. Huge. Defense stocks were going up, and great day for defense stocks, like 6% GRSE, 1.5% HAL, MassDoc, 3%, something like that. Great day for defense stocks. So IRDI nudged on IRDAI. ADI is basically the regulatory authority as far as insurance is considered, and IRDI is nudged on premiums and grievances. So a lot of premium hikes have been happening as far as insurance renewals are considered. You must be seeing that, and and that's not being covered right now. That's not being talked about a lot. So IRDI is being talked into dealing with this situation of premium hikes and a lot of grievance redressals, and even cybersecurity for that matter. So, but this always keeps happening, right? So it isn't much of a big deal as far as news is considered. Stocks feel the heat in West Asia, but don't boil over. So two minds, exactly. Even oil hasn't really increased as it could, because still the bigger question is, would Iran hurt the Strait of Hormuz? Will it block Strait of Hormuz? If it does, then it's going to be a temporary pain for the entire world economy and especially China. And that's exactly why we were thinking, would it happen? Because, who would want to hurt China? Nobody wants to hurt China. That's the hard reality of life. Nobody wants to upset China. Thinking about what Iran could be doing, do you think the current escalation of Iran would stop sometime soon? Now that it's made a statement, now that it's attacked US bases, those attacks haven't led to anything. All those drones, nothing hit. They were all intercepted. But after making that statement, do you think Iran will stop? And what do you think if it was counseled well? Wouldn't you think it would be better for Iran to actually just take a break, rebuild itself, take some help from China, Russia, everything, and then come back sometime later, years later, if it's not too late? But perhaps why these things can't happen is because there's a lot of internal strife, right? Iran had such a big incident at home. How does it affect the perception of the leadership at home? And if it backs down right now, what face would it have for its own populace? These kinds of things make people want to react, right? Because there's a lot of face saving at play. Half of the world is optics, and half of the moves are dictated by optics. So that's on. Looking at something that's on, it's basically the semaglutide obesity drug. Novo Nordics aims for heavy sales in India with Wegovy. So Novo has Wegovy, which is a semaglutide kind of a drug, and they are looking at heavy sales right now. They are really looking at some serious traction in India because of huge obese population. They say 600 million people, and with obesity, and a lot of people with diabetes, some 200 million people with diabetes, and so on and so forth. So it seems to be a good market for these people. However, the drug has recently been linked with some sort of blindness. It's making people blind, some people. But the company says the risk profile of the overall drug in totality is great, and we've had enough discussions about this, right? We've had enough discussions about this. But yeah, SoftBank is looking at taking over IT companies. SoftBank is now looking at taking over of IT companies and make them lead the AI revolution. Because IT companies, apparently, the current structure, they're not so bullish as these people want them to be. Now, considering this move, you've got to look at this situation from a historical perspective. So you know about Masa, right? Masayoshi Son from SoftBank. He has a history of not pioneering but bringing technologies to the world. So I'll tell you how SoftBank began. It's not a bank. The reason why it called itself SoftBank was it because it thought of itself as a software bank. So it wanted to be a software bank. So the first play it did was being a distributor of Microsoft in Japan. So that's a good bet. Microsoft, PC World, Revolution, early 80s, good bet. That really worked very well for itself, for SoftBank. Then it replicated that strategy with Yahoo Japan. So it invested in Yahoo with the sole condition that it's gonna bring Yahoo Japan, and that is gonna be a slight of a partnership. So while Yahoo fell overall, Yahoo US fell, Yahoo Japan did, because he brought its internet first in the vision. Yahoo didn't transition to Google search, but Yahoo Japan did, and Yahoo Japan also changed. So it was not a literal translation of Yahoo in Japanese. It was a different company and it survived. Then that was the first play, right? Then he invested in Alibaba, and then we all know what he did for the Vision Fund. So he thought bringing the established technologies into different markets. That turned out to be a wrong strategy, where he tried to bring Uber to India by Ola and so on and so forth. So he has a history of translating technology trends. So what this particular move means is that if it acquires IT, let's say BPOs and so on and so forth, with an AI mindset, the applicability of AI in these particular industries will skyrocket. Let's say, because if you have a BPO and if you have a KPO or whatever, and then an AI company takes over, so it's gonna look at that data from a very different lens than a regular IT company, which is just moving towards AI. You get the drift? You get the perspective of Mr. Masa here. It is terrific, and this news item, even though it's very small, should be taken very seriously, because AI's acceleration or AI's adoption, it's still not as fast as people thought it could be and would be. And maybe this is that step in that direction. So, moving forward, new fuel norms may be linked to your car size. Again, we have been ahead of the curve. As far as thinkers frequency viewers are considered, we've discussed that the problem with the Indian automotive space is that small cars aren't selling, right? And you can only sell as many big cars. There's a ceiling to how many big cars you can go. If you remember, we talked about how Alto, uh, uh, like a de facto small car, just sold 5,000 units last month, right? So what, again, nobody talked about it like this, but even this article wouldn't be viewed that way. However, read this. New fuel norms may be linked to your car size. That means small cars will be looking at easier fuel norms. What do you think? Why is this happening? Why are they trying to do it? You guessed it, right? You can guess the framing of it. Nobody wants to admit it. Nobody would explicitly mention it. But the government is starting to look at ways to fix the small car sales slump problem. And we saw it coming. That's the beauty of being regular with everything. Mr. Trump stays still interested in Iran diplomacy. Trump has asked US oil producers to drill, baby, drill. That was a campaign thing. And if you remember, US for the first time in many months had halted or slowed its oil production. Why? Because we talked about this. Because an oversupply of oil would have brought down the prices to an unsustainable level. And nobody wanted that. So they brought that thing down. But now, with the Iran play, they want it to start again. They don't want any shocks from the Iran space to enter the oil market, because oil, energy affects everything. Energy affects inflation in the most direct ways. We discussed this, how Team Trump has handled US inflation crisis is by cheapening the electricity, the energy cost, by drilling. So whatever cheapest source of energy you have, you use it. And if the gas prices go down, everything goes down. Because with gas prices, the logistics goes down, the raw materials go down, and so on and so forth. So everything comes down to energy. And so Team Trump is asking oil prices, everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it, says Mr. Trump. President Trump called for oil producing economies to pump more oil or step up production as White House sharpened its warning to Iran. In retaliation for this, he drill, baby, drill, come certain uncertain amount of time. So we discussed this, and it's exactly what's happening. They want to hedge their energy risk. Moving forward. Army deploys drones to make rapid advances. Quick drones procurement is taking steam because, again, as we discussed at Thinkers Frequency, It's just simple. You don't need to fight the war anymore. It's a simple solution for the war problem. The country who has more number of drones wins. Just consider that as the thumb rule. You don't need to fight, you don't need to do anything. The country with more drones wins. That's it. And Indian army and Indian armed forces have, they have been seeing these times, because Armenian and Azerbaijan war was entirely fought on drones. And Azerbaijan could literally destroy Armenia absolutely just by having drone superiority. And so is the case with every other war which is happening, if you look at it. So India is looking at more number of drones. Why? Because China has an extraordinary consortium. So 450 suicide drones ordered, 158 crores. Hybrid mini UAV order placed for UAVs, unmanned air vehicles, 137 crore, and so on and so forth, right? So a lot of companies. Which are the companies? If you want to know, for research purposes, I do remember, I'm just missing the names of these companies. Idea Forge. Idea Forge has taken an order, and Solar Industries. Solar Industries, Idea Forge, and a few more, right? So yeah, a lot of defense procurement. As I've always told you, I'm very bullish on defense, and I want defense to succeed. It's not like I know that defense is gonna succeed in India. I genuinely want it to succeed, because Jai Hind, guys, says Mr. Nishant S. Aluwalia. Beautiful first name. Jai Hind indeed. So a lot of because defense leads to nation building. When you invest in defense, you invest in manufacturing, which cannot be outsourced. You invest in a lot of IP creation. You invest in a lot of manufacturing capabilities, which are high end in nature, advanced in nature. You defense in a lot of technology advancements, and so on and so forth. So the military industrial complex shouldn't only be the domain of US and now China. India should also have some serious investments there. Let's see how it pans out for India, right? So moving forward, entry curbs slow down foreign travel. Apparently, tourist trail is facing a setback due to some sad behavior by Indians abroad, and those Indians have brought a lot of shame and embarrassment to the entire community, which has also led to some delay in visa approvals and so on and so on, which is such a travesty if you look at it. So there's a 72.9% drop in 2020 as compared to 2019. That's okay. By 2022, it surged, and right now, people are looking at visa blockages. I had applied for a Schengen visa to the embassy of Hungary, and to my utter amazement and disbelief, I was denied a visa on the ground of suspicious activities. So, Indian national departures growing 8%. This was higher pre-pandemic. Where is that particular piece? Ravi Gosain, the president of Indian Association of Tour Operators, has said that there was a noticeable increase in visa scrutiny, particularly in the Schengen region. Schengen is the Europe thing, due to some recent incident involving inappropriate behavior by a small fraction of Indians. So a small fraction of Indians making inappropriate remarks or whatever is leading to national embarrassment and even delaying and scrutinizing of Indian visas. How sad is that? But not unexpected, right? Nothing unexpected, nothing surprising at all. So even the countries like UAE, they are looking at higher spending tourists, not the frugal ones. So that's causing a bit of a problem as far as foreign travel is considered. But most of this is just fugazi fugazi. These things just keep happening. So nothing big here. Anyway, moving forward, reality funding flows thin. Investments in India's real estate moderated in the first half of 2025 amid challenging global economic conditions. But this could also be because of serious high base. Indian reality had been continuously growing reality investments, whether it be commercial investments in shared workspaces and office complexes, or even the premium housing and the ultra premium housing and so on and so forth. And as we discussed yesterday, that was looking at a bit of a what do we call it, mellow down. Defense has two junctions. Mr. Nishant Mittal says, defense has two junctions, internal and external. Make in India is only possible with us having our own domain. Big subject to explore. Let's keep an exclusive session on this subject. We'll message you in person. Oh, we discuss a lot about this, Mr. Nishant. Again, a great first name. We have talked a lot about this on Thinkers Frequency. We've discussed depths and breadths of intelligence, of procurement, of Make in India, of procurement of outside like foreign tools, of the spend of the defense budget of India to like $80 billion, how it's split. So you'll have a lot of fun if you're interested in these things. We talk a lot about this. Moving forward, Indian flagged vessels safe for now. All eyes on war escalation. So yesterday, what you saw was Iran going crazy. Iran went bazooka. It essentially started attacking people. A lot of countries. Even the airspace of UAE has been brought on hold, and Bahrain is getting attacked. Qatar is getting attacked, and so on and so forth. So people are looking at just one thing, and that is the Strait of Hormuz. Because if the Strait of Hormuz gets attacked, or let's say blocked, which industry is going to suffer? The insurance industry. Insurance industry. We talked a lot about insurance industry, if you guys remember. How insurance industry doesn't really make a lot of money at a net level. However, as Mr. Warren Buffett says, it's a beautiful play because of float. So Mr. Warren Buffett's empire has benefited a lot because of investments in GIC. GIC has made the fortune of Mr. Buffett's empire, right? And what float means is that insurance companies collect a lot of money as premiums, but the payment of those premiums, or let's say the damages, only happen later. So till that time, till damages happen, this money stays with the insurance companies. And that's a lot of money. And that money can be invested. It can be invested in different areas. And that is invested. So that float gives it a financial instrument kind of a play, right? But when it's time to pay, it's time to pay. And that's always a sad day. So even for insurance companies, and that's exactly what's happening. So industries dependent on global supply chains may face major shortages, and freight costs and insurance costs are under watch. Another industry is bearing the brunt of this particular problem, and you know which industry is that, right? You know which industry? Insurance, not even a 15% penetration in India. Sad, says Mr. Nishant. Mr. Nishant, not 15%. Actually, life insurance is general insurance is around 4%. Not 15%, but 4%. So insurance penetration is indeed very, very less in India as far as the whole quantum is considered. Yes, some segments of it have better penetrations. Maybe you're mentioning that, but 4%. So sad indeed, you're right. But I was talking about another industry which is going through a real tough time. Which industry is that? Do you remember, guys? Do you remember? Folks of Thinkers Frequency would know. We talked about one industry which never makes money in the eyes of Peter Thiel, and which he has been proven right about, because that industry, no matter its contribution in the global economy, in a national economy, in whatever it does, it somehow always fails to make money. It always goes under debt, and nobody, airline, Mr. Patil, medals to you. You remember. This is awesome. And airline industry is going through a real tough time. Airlines, Mr. Tushar Tiwari says, You are right as well, Mr. Tiwari. Great job. So, airlines industry are screwed. Let's look at Indigo stock. How is Indigo stock doing right now? Oh, Indigo stock is up. Some sort of irrationality there. Which else? Which other stock? Air India is of course going to be down, right? Air India is a listed company. No, not really. So, which other company do we have as far as uh, airlines are considered? SpiceJet, even that is up. This is weird. This shouldn't be happening. I think we are gonna see some down. We should probably. So markets are sometimes irrational, but we might just be seeing at some downward momentum as these stocks are considered, because a lot of uh, flights are getting cancelled and rerouted, as we just saw, right? So a lot of airspaces are going off the grid, and that could be a big problem. So looking at that, we've already discussed what's going to happen with Strait of Hormuz closing, right? 50% of our natural gas, 30% of our crude, and world economy is going to suffer. But we have thought that that won't happen. Why? Because China. Nobody wants to hurt China. I believe that. I believe that. Moving forward, private sector activity sees a 14-month high in June. Manufacturing hits a 14-month high of 58.4%, while services rose 10-month high. So this data always has some latency, and this data is also pretty cyclical. Whenever these they come up with this, it basically changes every month, and some of it is just regular fluctuations. So whether it's highs, whether it's lows, we've got to look at fundamentals and not news, just news. And as far as this news is considered, I think it's irrelevant. It's a 360-degree system. India is tough to go on industries where MNCs have their handhold. I'm not sure you would. I would like you to clarify on that, Mr. Nishant. Anyway, NHAI will use AI to manage NH traffic during monsoon. Well, that's another buzzword. Nothing to see there. Private sector to lead skills training at 1,000 upgraded ITIs. ITIs have a huge role to play as far as Indian skill gap is considered. So whenever you read any company, so Hari Tien sir, he has written a very good book called Tying the Guardian's Knot, and he's the founder of Big Basket, and he writes a lot. He has written a few books, and one of those books he discusses the macroeconomics and socio-economics, not political but socio-economic factors of India. And one of those chapters, he mentioned the skilling gap. So India has, people say it's an employment problem. There might not be enough job opportunities for Indians. But if you look deeper into that data, you will find that it's not employment gap, it's a skilling gap. We have a serious problem as far as skilling of our youth is considered. And it goes beyond the few engineering colleges or whatever. We have a serious lack of vocational skills and other skills needed to actually build a country, right? So whenever you talk to employees, they'll say, I can't find a job. But whenever you talk to employers, they say, I can't find people, because there's a serious skilling issue as far as this country is considered. Now, how do you deal with that? So there's something called ITIs, Indian Training Institutes, I guess, which deal with a lot of vocational studies and vocational training courses for India. So they are like diploma centers and so on and so forth, and they are looking at a serious fillip. So if you remember, we discussed it at Thinkers Frequency. The government was hoping that the private sector will essentially take over these ITIs. Do you remember that? We had a discussion on this, that the government wants the private sector to take over the operations of ITI, or let's say the major part of ITI, while it can be advising, financing, funding the operation, monitoring its progress, but it doesn't want to run the particular center. And that's exactly what's happening. So That's moving forward. That's a very good step. Very good step. Although I just hope that things run with less, if not zero, with less hacks. Because I also told you in a controversial episode where I shouldn't have named the companies, but I said a lot of companies in the skilling initiative of 2012, 2013, 2014 were actually scamming the government. So these companies used our training institutes, they train people for money, and they were showing the same people as the beneficiaries of the skilling initiative. So they were taking both sides of the payment. So they were taking money from people, and they were also taking money from the government for skilling the same people. So essentially their customers, they were having double payment for that. That doesn't happen anymore. However, as Mr. Scott Adams, my personal hero, has mentioned, whenever there is a scope of corruption, corruption happens, and you need three things for corruption. You need money, involvement of money, you need involvement of people, and you need time. So more the number of involvement, number of people involved, and more the amount of money, and more the time, system becomes corrupt. And the only way to do it is reduce the number of people, because you don't want to reduce the money, right? The money should flow. You should reduce the number of people, because time also flows. You don't have any control over time. So just money. Just people you have control over. Anyway, Mr. Nishant says, it's a 360-degree system. India tough to go on industries where MNCs have their handhold. By system, I meant government bumps. Well, if you follow Mr. Aluwalia, you'll see that we are looking at a lot of policies where the government is actually making great moves. So not just like from a policy level, policy is sure great whatever happens, but from an implementation level. So they've been looking at removing people from the equation. Just yesterday or day before, I don't remember, we discussed how they were looking at real estate records getting digitized so that people don't have to visit government offices for different purposes. Then we also looked at how restaurants, the NOC requirement for police was being let go, so that, restaurant owners or pub owners or whatever, they don't have to go to police and get the NOC, which is obviously a case for bribe. So the government has actively been trying to reduce the number of people as far as these operations are considered. Mr. Tushar Tiwari says, whoever gets highly skilled leaves India. Oh, very well said. We discussed a lot of this, by the way. Indians just need a chance to leave India, and whoever can leave India tries to leave India at any end of the spectrum, which is obviously sad, because we do not want to export our people. People think that it gives us a lot of remittance money, and even I used to think, man, we get $100 billion from remittance every year, so let's just send people abroad. Let's ask them to shoo away, bye bye. But when I then read deeper, I found out that we spend over $60 billion on travel and spending abroad and education abroad by people who want to settle abroad. 60-80 billion dollars every year. So essentially what we are looking at is just a net profit as a country of $20 billion. So is $20 billion a year worth losing your richest people? I don't know. What do you think about that? That's a tough sell for me, definitely. I wouldn't consider that a win in any case, right? So that's it. Accenture guidance spooks Dalal Street. Investors trim IT bets. What did I tell you? I feel like an African lady in hindsight. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? What happened? Exactly like I told you that Indian IT will be looking at tough times. And Accenture, which is essentially proxy of the global IT spend, is looking at a more muted guidance for its revenue growth. So that has spooked everyone. Indian IT fell a lot yesterday. So a lot of the index that we lost, the market, a lot of it was because of Accenture, not even because of trade. Because IT went like 1.5-2% down. Nifty IT fell 1.5% yesterday. So you can imagine a lot of what we lost yesterday as far as market value was considered was IT. So that happens, and the whole AI bit that Mr. Masa will be doing. He's looking at acquiring these IT BPOs and so on and so forth, IT-led businesses. It's gonna hurt this particular business in one way or the other. Take it from me. We'll look at it. You'll see. Anyway, moving forward. Some IPOs happening. That's not a big deal. Stocks rise as Wall Street remains calm after US strikes on Iran. Well, that's okay. Fed's Bauman in favor of rate cut if inflation is subdued. So again, viewers of Thinker's Frequency would remember that Team Trump and Thomas Powell, the Fed chief of United States, US Fed Reserves, they are having a real fight, right? Mr. Trump wants to Powell to reduce the interest rates. Why? Because if interest rates go down, US economy will be looking at another phase of growth. But Powell has not done that. So Russia has reduced rates, India has reduced rates, Euro is looking at reducing rates or has reduced already, I don't know. Britain hasn't, but all of these countries are looking at reducing rates. Why? Even China, I guess, I'm not sure. But US hasn't. And Thomas Powell says that we are looking at a non-political analysis. But Trump says that inflation is down, employment is up, you should look at a better, a rate cut, because with lending, with whatever movements we'll see, the economy will start growing. So that's a feud. He's called Powell stupid, the chief of Fed. But that's no surprise for Mr. Trump, right? So anyway, Bauman, she's the governor of Fed. So she's not exactly the chief, but she's probably a tier low. She says that in favor of rate cut if inflation is subdued. And inflation is already subdued. So there are basically the Fed is looking at different power sector. Is it political? Of course it is. Of course it is. PhonePe is looking at an IPO, which is interesting. So Walmart's acquisition of Flipkart has obviously not made money for Walmart in the bottom line sense of the word. So Walmart bought like $19 billion worth of shares, 77%, at a valuation of some $38 billion, or I don't remember. What was the valuation at which Flipkart was bought by Walmart? Some $30 billion? Not sure. But it paid $19 billion is what I remember. Right? However, Walmart has used Flipkart as a strategic asset very well. Things have really panned out well. Flipkart still loses like $1 billion every year in India. Still, it's a very good investment for Walmart. You know how? Because after Flipkart was bought by Walmart, PhonePe grew and it was demerged from Flipkart, and PhonePe itself would be a huge company, about $5 billion and so on and so forth. So the value of Walmart's stake in Flipkart has become huge because Flipkart's valuation has become huge despite the losses, and PhonePe's valuation has become huge. So PhonePe has given Walmart a great fillip. It has really worked out very well for Walmart, because then it's going to sell the PhonePe stock in the Indian IPO market, which is going to lead to great outcomes for Walmart finance-wise. Now, I wrote a very big piece on why Flipkart isn't a real company. Isn't a conventional company. It's a strategic asset. So first, it was a strategic asset in the hands of Tiger Global. The idea of Flipkart was not to make money. The idea of Flipkart was to prevent Amazon from making money, because India is a great market, and Flipkart, the investors of Flipkart didn't want Amazon to win Indian market. So it was ready to lose money if Amazon was losing money. And if Amazon kept losing money, it was okay losing money. And whoever comes to their senses wins or loses. But the point is, Amazon couldn't win India. And even though Flipkart still loses money, it was a win for Tiger Global when it sold to Walmart. Now, Walmart is a $500 billion company by revenues. So losing $1 billion here and there doesn't matter to Walmart. However, having a grip on a market like India is great news. And also then spurning off strategic financial assets like PhonePe is great. If PhonePe turns out to be a $10 billion company, half of a lot of Walmart's investments in Flipkart will be recovered, right? So a lot of financial engineering, great, good, smart financial engineering by Team Walmart. By the way, if you want to learn about Walmart, I highly recommend a book called Made in America. Made in America is the biography of Sam Walton. Little book. It's there, top shelf. Great book. Absolutely wonderful book. You know what? Mr. Musk might just be the richest person, but Waltons are still the richest family. They are extremely rich, and one of the reasons they have such an astounding net worth is because they have never sold. They don't believe in selling Walmart stock. The family skin is in the game, and that's why I have a lot of respect for Walmart. So you'd like to read that book. It's a brilliant book. Mr. Aluwalia says policy making is only for the richy rich. No, sir, I won't. If you mean only rich people make policy, I'd agree, because no poor people actually get there. But no, because let's say Jandhan wasn't a richy rich policy, right? Making poor people get bank accounts. UPI wasn't a richy rich policy. Everybody could. Ayushman Bharat wasn't a richy rich policy. Poor people getting insurance cover. So no, not really, sir. Mr. Aluwalia. Great first name, by the way, Nishant. Anyway, rupee hedging costs hold steady. That's okay. That's fine. We've talked about this. NHB tightens for refinancing rules to check misuse of home loans. So now what they're looking at is allotting home loans to people where the construction of the project has already begun. Because there's a lot of fugazi in the real estate home loan market, right? But yeah, so that's something that is happening. NHB says stage of construction must be verified via report. HFCs must ensure eligible loans are flagged for NHB refinance. Loans for completed house should be treated as loans against property, not home loans. New rule to affect low income borrowers. Such borrowers start construction on cell phone land. These applicants should still qualify for funding under home loan category. So essentially it's an argument between HFC and the NHB. The NHB is National Housing Bank, and HFC is the Association of Housing Finance Companies. So housing finance companies are saying that you shouldn't do that, because if you tighten such things, you will be seeing these people going to the informal sector for borrowing. And just yesterday we discussed how India borrows a lot from the informal sector. You remember the numbers? Anybody remembers the numbers? We had some interesting numbers shared. So let's see if I can remember. We saw that 55% of Indian people borrow with through informal sources, and the ratio of informal to formal borrowing was 2.5 in India, but it was 0.27 in US, and there was a number in Brazil, 0.65 in Brazil. So we have still got a lot of informal borrowing going on. With these tightening of norms by NHB, HFC says, the committee of these housing finance companies, that don't do this. Loans completed houses should be treated as loans against property, not home loans, because of differential of this. If people have trouble understanding this, do let me know. Hero Finance Corp weighs $300 million bond issue. So we discussed how corporates are turning to bonds, right? You remember why we talked about this? Interest rates went down, but banks haven't really translated that interest rate downward movement. So banks still have slightly elevated interest rates as far as the market conditions are considered. And sometimes companies look at this opportunity to offer bonds instead of taking a loan from banks. A lot of times this happens. Another example is Hero. Hero FinCorp is exploring first ever offshore bond, raise up to 300 million due to through a dollar denominated bond. Potential offering allows 200 million syndicate loan and so on and so forth. Hero FinCorp is the lending arm of Hero MotoCorp, India's largest two-wheeler manufacturer. Nearly one third of Hero FinCorp's business comes from Hero. Two-wheeler loans account for 16%. Sure, great. No surprise there. No surprise there. So Hero FinCorp is gonna raise a bond. No problem there. I hope I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I haven't. I haven't really missed anything. VIX, the volatility index has risen 2.7%, but even that is not a news really, because this is a market. It goes up and down. Fundamentally, what we are looking at is confusion as far as the Indian market is considered. Will Iran stuck attack, or let's say block the Strait of Hormuz? And even if that happens, by the way, a midterm outlook would be that it would not stay. The block would not stay. The block would be reversed very soon. Why? Because China. So overall, I believe we are very safe now. Adani commissions first off-grid hydrogen plant. So if you remember green hydrogen, we discussed a lot about green hydrogen being a very important play as far as energy is considered, and even automotive sector is considered, because people were considering green hydrogen as an alternative to EV. And why were we looking at green hydrogen as an alternative to EV? Because with EV, all the chips are held by somebody called China. And we wanted some redundancy as far as that is considered, or let's say some hedge as far as that is considered. But the problem with green hydrogen is that it costs a lot of electricity to make. So electrolysis is what leads to green hydrogen. But to make that electrolysis happen, a lot of power is used. So sometimes you make green hydrogen, and at the end of the day, what you've made, you're behind on your investment. So let's say you invest X number of units and you generate Y amount of green hydrogen. The power that it can generate, Z, is less than the X. But now Adani Group has commissioned first off-grid hydrogen plant. What that means it says that we are going to generate hydrogen through renewable sources only, through solar, through wind, through whatever. So they are going to be off the grid, and then they are going to be making green hydrogen, which is going to be awesome. So SMW plant relies only on its own renewable energy generation for hydrogen production. This is incredible. If this happens, you might just be looking at this particular thing seriously, because nobody has been able to make this to market. It's not a marketable product right now, the green hydrogen bit. But maybe it comes out to be soon. Adani's Power Mumbai arm cuts debt, eyes more buybacks. Interesting. India AI plan moves forward with 17,000 GPUs successfully installed. So India had a plan of GPU installations, and with that plan, India wanted, how many GPUs India wanted to install? Some 34,000 GPUs, and 17,000 of them have been successfully installed already. So we are very moving as fast as we can as far as the whole GPU play is considered. Two companies are Yota Data Services, and then there is somebody else, right? I am forgetting the name of the company. 2 of the 10 CSP selected in the first round, Geo Platforms and Control S Data Centers, are yet to deploy their GPUs, while providers like Yota, NextGen, E2E networks have made significant headway. So Geo hasn't yet stepped in the game. If it does, we are gonna look at some good news as far as GPU installation is considered. And with GPU installation, we might just be hoping for good stuff, more AI, hopefully. Meet the firms taking big bite of Apple India's manufacturing pie. So there's Foxconn, there's Tata Electronics, there are other players. You remember ZWorks were looking at iPhone enclosures or something? Jabil in the pipeline, Corning. A lot of people are actually looking at the whole Apple manufacturing place considered. And we talked about, a lot of people were scared that US Team Trump pressurizing Apple to not build in India would lead to some of these investments going out. You remember, a lot of people were fearing, but we had discussed at Thinkers Frequency that that wouldn't happen, and our rationale behind that was that uh, it takes time. So even if Apple wants to invest in America, wants to manufacture in America, it's gonna take time. The diversification of the supply chain would not stop in India, because even if Apple is interested in US, or if Apple is pressurized to build in US, it would still need India, right? It needs to go off China a little, off the ramp, off the ramp. So that's what's happening. And with that, finally, there's a lot of action as far as the healthcare space is considered. AI is the new doctor. People are using AI for diagnosis. For a company recently came to me for advice, where they actually made an AI tool agent for reading research, medical research. Like, there are a lot of companies developing these agents. So this particular entrepreneur had built something in healthcare, where they talked about helping researchers, read and publish or review research. So AI will lead to a lot of job losses as far as doctors are considered, for sure, because early diagnosis and even post first visit diagnosis will get a decline. So doctors will be losing jobs uh, very, very, very quickly. And I hope that they can deal with the medical consequences of that, unfortunately. We used to have these discussions at Testament, the company I was building, the first company I built. And in the office, we used to talk about how AI is going to lead to job losses. And people used to be saying, no, no, no. But just a few days ago, I got sick and I went to the doctor because I saw a lump of throat, okay? Lump in my throat. So I was scared and I said, whoa, what is this? What is this? So the doctor met me and he asked me for a few scans. I got those scans, and then I was supposed to go back to the doctor, but I read those scans myself, and then I thought, let me just run these scans through ChatGPT and see if these scans actually indicate something bad, right? So the radiologist, or the person who was doing the test, said that these look fine. So I went on ChatGPT and I ran through those scans, and it said these are fine. So I didn't go to the doctor for the second visit, and that's just me. So just imagine if this happens and a doctor's visits, number of visits that a doctor sees, comes down to half. What happens? If not half, let's say even 30%. What happens? So you're gonna see a lot of interesting things happening as far as AI is considered. With that, ladies and gentlemen, our session of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in, has come to an end. It's 9:05. We got to start our work day. Can't take more of your time. I hope you had a beautiful mental workout at Thinkers Frequency, because that's what we call it, right? The mental workout, insights, analysis, thinking, predicting, and so on and so forth. I hope you have fun, and I hope that you have a beautiful day, personally and professionally. In just a few minutes, we'll be punching in. Wish you a great day. This was the 30th episode of Thinkers Frequency. See you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Bye-bye.